Hi aspirants, welcome to our weekly current affairs discussion for geography and environment. The first topic for today is going to be the IPCC's 6th assessment report. And in general, the overview is this particular report is trying to talk about a carbon neutral world. And it also talks about what happens in case the gas emissions peaks by 2025. So you have to understand, peak at 2025 doesn't mean something it's bad, it's actually something good. That is, once it's something peaks, it cannot go beyond that, it has to come down. So we have not yet reached the peak, so we should reach the peak by 2025 at least, only then it will start to reduce after that. So this is what our idea is all about, and this report is also talking about that. So on the whole, what does this report try to say? It says we are already late. Our target was to reduce the temperature increase beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. It should not cross 1.5 degrees Celsius. This was our target. But what this IPCC report says is, if we are working how we are working now at present, we might miss the target of this 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is what it says. But it also says, but the world is not out of options yet. So yes, we are missing the target. We are not talking about the future. We might get affected in future. No. We are already getting affected because of this climate change. We can see what is happening. We are in the midst of climate change. We are not talking something about the future, but yet we are not too late. It doesn't mean that the world is out of options, yet we can try and bring it back. This is what the IPCC's 6th assessment report talks about. And this final report, this is the third and the final part of the 6th assessment report. So each assessment report will have 3 parts. So this is the final part out of the 6th report. Now it says the global emissions are still showing an increasing trend. Of course, we know that. And it also talks something about CDR technology, which means physical removal of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to reduce the greenhouse gas effect. So far we were talking something called as carbon sequestration. So what was carbon sequestration? That is trying to capture carbon from various emissions or whatever and storing it somewhere. Even trees can act as a carbon sequestration process. It can capture the carbon and keep it within itself. Sometimes man-made objects can work as carbon sequestrators. Now we have gone to the next level of, we are in no position of doing carbon sequestration. We have to go to the next level because emissions have already gone beyond. We have to capture it back. We have to remove the emissions which are already in the atmosphere, and we have to try and bring it down. This is called as CDR technology. We have to know what is CDR technology. That is already the carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere. We are trying to capture it, and by that trying to reduce the greenhouse gas effect. And this report also says half of the world's current emissions can be cut by 2030. This is possible. This is what the report says. The IPCC report points out that nearly half the world's current emissions can be cut by 2030 using only technologies that cost less than $100. Just using $100, we can cut the emissions by 50%, or 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, whatever. Either it is 50% of emissions or 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent can be reduced by 2030 just by using technology worth $100. This is what it is optimistic about this report. Though this report says we are too late, it says that we can use the technology. We are not asking to use technology. We are not asking to invent any new technology or any costly technology. Simply the technology already that we have. If we can spend just $100 With that also, if we keep consistently reducing that emissions, we can reduce it below 50% by 2030. It is very much optimistic. All we have to do is we have to have the will and wish to work. But are we doing it? Let us see something about this current affairs. Look here, we know that does India have a station in Antarctic, a research station? Yes, we do have. And in Arctic, yes, we do have. And why do India and any other country want to have a research center in Antarctic or in Arctic? Are we so much interested in science and technology? We want to do the research? No. Now, for the Arctic region, there is some sort of convention or law on how to use the Arctic region. But for Antarctic, so far we do not have any such convention, any binding convention. And probably it is going to be made very soon. So when such a convention is going to be made, who are going to benefit are the countries who already have some sort of stake in Antarctica. So if they say that hereafter only these countries can excavate from here only so much, such a convention is made, who are going to be the first beneficiaries? Who already have some sort of stake in that. That is why countries are rushing to have some sort of foothold in Antarctica and Arctic. Why? Because Antarctic is said to have the largest amount of coal. It is larger than all the coal combined in the entire part of the world apart from Antarctica. Such a lot of coal is present in Antarctica. So when this ice is going to melt in Antarctica, people are going to rush for that coal. So we are waiting for the ice to melt. On the other hand, we are fearing this melting of ice, saying that the water level is going to rise, the islands are going to get sunk, all these are going on. But on the other hand, people are waiting for the ice to get melt in Antarctica as well as in Arctic region as well. In the Arctic region, we know that there is a lot of gas present. Russia says that we want the lion's share. We are the masters here in Russia, in this Arctic region. They are waiting for the ice to melt. So are we going the right direction? At present, it's a huge question mark. But what the IPCC report says is just spend $100 and you can reduce the emissions by 50%. All these details you can greatly use it in your mains, which will increase your mark. And it says examples of such technologies include large scale deployment of renewables like solar, wind energy, carbon sequestration in soil, reduction in deforestation, and improvement of energy efficiency. And maybe if you remember in your mains, you can use something called as save soil, something which is being happening throughout the world, which is initiated from here in India by this person called Sadhguru. It is have something called save soil. So why we have to save soil? There are many reasons for this, and one such reason is soil is the one which acts as a carbon sequestrator. So if soil is going to be spoiled, it's going to emit all the carbon which it has been holding so long. It's going to work negatively. Okay. And the report says 25% of the current emissions can be reduced using technologies that cost less than $20. If you have to reduce it to 50%, you spend $100. If you can reduce it by 25%, you just have to use $20. That's it. It's too cheap, but just we have to work. That's what the report tries to say. Now, such technologies include shift to electric vehicles, lifestyle changes like using bicycles instead of motorized vehicles, using public transport, and so on. So it has split into two. If you are going to use, if you want to reduce 50%, what and all you have to do. If you want to reduce by 25%, what and all you have to do. Then deployment of renewables like solar, wind energy, carbon sequestration in soil, reduction in deforestation, improvement of energy efficiency, all these things, if we are going to do, we are going to cut the emissions by 50%. So maybe after listening to this video, you can, maybe you're not going to shift completely to your bicycle as much as possible. If you're going to a very short distance, you can use your bicycle instead of using your motorized two-wheeler. We can try just. And the IPCC report says the cost of solar energy or lithium ion batteries, for example, has come down by nearly 85%. But at the same time, the cost of wind power has reduced by 55% since 2010. So comparing to 2010, the cost of solar energy has come down by 85%. Yes, we can experience it in our life as well. Nowadays we can see small shops, houses using solar panels to run things like DC fans. They are using it for rainwater harvesting and so on. And on the other hand, wind power has reduced by 55% in cost. So it says that the chances are good that we can use or we can switch to solar energy or wind energy. And the climate change 2021, what it has done? Physical science basis was released on August 2021. So something called as the physical science basis was released. And climate change 2022, the impacts, adaptation and vulnerability was released on February 2022. So I told you, right, there are different reports. Out of the 6th report, there are different parts. So 2021, the heading was the physical science basis. In 2022, it is called as impacts, adaptation and vulnerability, and it was released on 28 February. And this one, climate change 2022, which is released on April 2022, the last one, which we are talking about right now. Okay, the third part of the 6th report. The title says mitigation of climate change. Okay, so the last part title is mitigation of climate change. The one which was released in February, the title was impacts, adaptation and vulnerability, and which was released way back in 2021, the title was physical science basis. So this could be a very well a prelims question. So what was the title of the report of the 6th assessment of the various parts? Part 1, it says physical science basis. Second part, it says impacts, adaptation and vulnerability, and the last one says mitigation of climate change. So try to remember these. And the PDF of this presentation will be given in the description. You can use that as well. And what is this IPCC report? Some conventional data. Let us see. This report is actually prepared by the scientists of Working Group 1. So something called as Working Group 1. These scientists prepare this IPCC assessment report. The report says that coal would need to be given up entirely by the year 2050. While the use of oil and gas should be reduced by at least 60 and 70% respectively. So by 2050, these are very famous prelims questions. Try to note them. It says coal should be completely stopped by 2050 and oil and gas should be reduced to 60 to 70% by 2050. So what is this IPCC? It is called as Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It is an international body for assessing the science related to climate change. So we know we have been going through a lot of conventions regarding climate change. So the science behind this climate change, to assess this, give the report, all these things are done by one body, and that is called as Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or simply IPCC. It was founded in the year 1998 by the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Environment Program. Really very important. Please note it down and try to revise it. Once you watch this video at night when you go to sleep or something, note down all the prelims points, try to recall it once again, or else it will become like useless listening to the video. This IPCC, it works to provide policymakers with the regular assessment of scientific basis of climate change. So the job of this IPCC is not to make schemes, not to make policies, not to make any binding rules or non-binding rules, nothing. It will just find it will just do the scientific research and give the data to the people, give the data to the United Nations, give the data to the world, and each country seeing this report, the United Nations or whomever it is, they will see the scientific analysis and they will try to make schemes and policies which will be helping to fight against climate change. But at the same time, IPCC, it does not engage in scientific research. You have to know that it directly does not engage in scientific research. Instead, it asks scientists from around the world to go through all the relevant scientific literature related to climate change and draw up the logical conclusion. So just IPCC is just a report maker. That's it. It is just a report maker. Whether it does scientific researches? No, it does not do researches. Such questions are really important for prelims. So they might very easily ask a question, IPCC does scientific researches so that it will help policymakers. We will obviously think it is yes. No, they don't do any research. They just get the ideas, get the report, get the researches made by various scientists, and they draw up a proper report and give it out. That's all. The IPCC assessment reports. So how they are released? Comprehensive scientific evaluations of the state of Earth's climate. So this is the first report. The first report was released in 1990. The fifth report, the last, one before, was released in 2014. And of course, you know, the sixth report, as we saw now, is being released in 2021 and 2022. So we have taken not all the details, when was the first one, second one released and all. No, that's not needed, but you have to know when was the first report released, and the last one is in 2021 and 22, and the one before that also we need to know, that was in 2014. These assessment reports, they are released, we already know they are released by the working groups. They are released by 3 working groups of scientists. There are 3 groups of scientists. So one is group 1. They deal with the scientific basis for climate change. Group 2, they look for the vulnerabilities and how it can be adapted. And the third one, the third working groups, it releases the report related to how to combat the climate change. So the first one, it sees, just it makes the research. Just it gets the report of the research. So what is climate change happening? That's all. The second one sees what are the problems because of climate change and is there any way to adapt. And the third group sees how to fight against climate change. And under this, the AR2, it was a scientific underpinning for the Kyoto Protocol of 1997. That is the assessment report 2. The second report was taken as the base for the formation of the Kyoto Protocol. And at the same time, the fourth report which was released in 2007, it even won a Nobel Prize. Please note it down. The fourth report, it even won a Nobel Prize. And it gave the input for the Copenhagen climate meet. So after the 1997 Kyoto Protocol, the next important meeting, we know it was the Copenhagen climate meeting. For that, the scientific basis was the report of the fourth report actually. And the fifth report, it formed the scientific basis for the Paris Agreement in 2015. So you can see that once the IPCC releases a report, that report is taken as a basis to frame the next important policy for climate change. So we finished with a huge topic. We'll go to the next topic. United Nations Environment Program. We know that they, along with the World Meteorological Organization, they are the ones who started this IPCC. And they release various reports. And so far, they have released 6 reports. The 6th report is which we were talking about right now, and that report says we are already out of time, but it doesn't mean we are already out of options. We do have options, and just spending $100, we can reduce the emissions by 50% by the year 2030. So this is the overall summary of what we saw just now. Okay, so now we'll go to the next topic, second topic. UNEA Plastic Pollution Resolution. So what is this? This is a resolution at the recent 5th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly. So it is shortly called as UNEA 5.2. It was held in Nairobi, and it was held specifically to end plastic pollution and forge an internationally legally binding agreement by 2024. So you have to be very careful. They are planning to make an agreement, and that agreement is supposed to be binding. For what? To end plastic pollution. And who hosted it? It was hosted by the United Nations Environment Program. So the first topic and the second topic what we are talking today are related to United Nations Environment Program. And it was also binding. So the important point here is this report is going to be binding, and this report is going to be made by the year 2024. But something important is it is voluntary. So it is voluntary whether a country is going to adopt it or not. But once you adopt it, it becomes binding. You cannot play around. Now this resolution will pertain to marine ecosystems as well. One important thing is it will pertain to marine ecosystem as well. But this is not a huge doubt for us. The marine pollution by plastic is much more than the land pollution. I hope you know. Even the amount of plastic floating on the oceans is almost the size of a huge island. It's as big as Australia, it is said to be. So we have to know that marine, of course, it's going to be included, and it will include both binding and voluntary approaches from member states. So the steps, the provisions are going to be split into two. Some are going to be voluntary, some are going to be binding. That is how the report is, this assessment or this agreement is going to be made. Now the plastic production has increased exponentially in the last decades, and now it amounts to around 400 million tons per year. So they say now we are producing 400 million tons of plastic per year, and it is also says it is going to double by the year 2040. This is really threatening, and we know how much plastic pollution is affecting us, and now they say it is already 400 million tons per year we are producing plastics, and it is going to double by 2040. All these data you could very well use it in your mains, and there is a lot of chance to be asked in prelims as well. And by 2050, greenhouse gas emissions associated with plastic alone would account for 50% of allowed emissions. Okay, so out of the total allowed emissions, 15% will be because of plastic alone by the year 2050. That is what this report says. So where is this allowed emissions given? Under the goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So if we have to reduce the global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, there are certain rules given, and one out of that is some allowed emissions. Out of that allowed emissions, 15% will be taken by plastic pollution alone. It's really threatening in that case. So some of the other outcomes of this meeting include, it is going to establish an intergovernmental negotiating committee. Okay, they are going to establish something called as intergovernmental negotiating committee, mandate to forge an international legally binding agreement to end plastic pollution. So this intergovernmental negotiating committee, though the name says negotiating, but it is going to be legally binding. Please note it down. It's going to be legally binding to end plastic pollution. Okay, it's really important. It's going to be legally binding, not just binding. It is going to say what's the difference between binding and legally binding? Binding is if that particular country passes act in its own parliament, then we call it as ratified. So it's binding, that's it. But here it is legally binding. So if you don't do it, you will face consequences because of that, any sort of sanctions or something. Okay. This INC, this Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, it will begin its work in the year 2020. So with the ambition of completing a draft globally legal binding agreement by 2024. So they will start the work by 2020, that is now, and by 2024 they will have a very good draft. The development is considered the most important environmental deal since 2015 agreement. Okay, so this is really important. So after the 2015 Paris agreement, this particular INC is said to be the biggest. So it's really important. So what about this United Nations Environment Assembly? So we said this meeting was convened by the United Nations Environment Assembly, didn't we? So what is this? It is the governing body of the United Nations Environment Program. It is the world's highest level decision making body on environment. All these are really important because such are the questions asked in prelims. So this is the governing body of UNEP. This is the highest level decision making body on environment. So regarding environment, this is the highest decision making body. The assembly is made of 193 United Nations member states and also convenes every 2 years to advance global environmental governance. So they meet every 2 years. Meet every 2 years. It was created in 2012. It was created in 2012 during the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, and this is also called as Rio Plus 20. So when was this United Nations Environment Assembly created? It was created during the Rio 20. It's really important. It was created during Rio 20. And some details about the monsoon because it's in news. So because it is said that this year the monsoons are going to be normal. Okay, sometimes it can even exceed. It can there's chances to be surplus as well, except very few places. Other places the monsoon is going to be normal or a little bit surplus also. This is the news. So some details about the monsoon. Monsoon provides 70% of the rain in India, and out of that, southwest monsoon alone gives 75% of the country's annual rainfall. So total rainfall, we know there are types of rainfall like orographic rainfall, and we have this convectional rainfall, all these things. Of course, monsoon uses orographic way of rainfall, but other than that, we have convectional way of rainfall also. So out of the total rainfall that India receives, 70% is from the monsoon. So this, out of the total monsoon rainfall, 75% is from southwest monsoon and the rest 25% is from northeast monsoon. So Indian Meteorological Department, in its first long range forecast, which is shortly called as LFR, we'll see what it is. It said 2022 will have a normal or above normal monsoon in the north and central India. So northeast, Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir, these are the only 3 places which might have a deficit monsoon. All other places except these 3 places, entire India is going to have a normal monsoon or a above normal monsoon, which is a really great news. So who releases this long range forecast? It is released by the Indian Meteorological Department. So they release it during April and June. So during every April and June, they release something called as long range forecast. So we have to see what is long range forecast as well. Long range forecast is, they'll examine the rainfall for the last 50 years. They'll take an average. They'll have an average value. Based on that, they will release the long range forecast. Okay, the last 50 years, this is the important thing to know. The time period calculated for monsoon is the last 50 years. So the news here is, the southwest monsoon rainfall during June to September will be normal, and it will be 99% of the long period average. So what is the long period average? So we just now spoke about long period forecast. So what is long period average? In the past 50 years, they'll take all the rainfall in the past 50 years and they'll take an average value. That average value will be called as long period average, which is actually 87 centimeters. The actual value of long period average is 87 centimeters. So this long period average, that is the last 50 years, it is 87. Before that, that is around the, let us say the 60 years from now or 70 years from now, before that time it was actually 88 centimeters. In the present, LPA is 87 centimeters. So rainfall is reducing in our country on an average itself. So this is the 4th consecutive year that the IMD is predicting a normal rainfall. Before that, we know that before 4 years, we were having deficit monsoon. Consecutively, we were having deficit monsoon, but for the past 4 years, we are having a very normal monsoon. The seasonal rainfall is considered normal when it is 96 to 104% of the LPA. So just now we saw that This year the rainfall is expected to be 99%. So if it fluctuates between 96%, 104%, we are going to say it's normal. When it goes below the 96%, then we will call it as a deficit monsoon. If it increases more than 104%, we will call it as a surplus monsoon. So now once again the definition. The long period average, or the LPA, is defined as the average of the last 50 years of rainfall. So till last year, the average of the period, that is between 1961 and 2011. This period is taken as the LPA. Really very, very important. Very, very important. So which period is considered for the LPA? It is 1961 to 2011. So this year, in a routine revision that happens every decade, the LPA baseline has been changed to 1971 to 2011. Sorry, 2020. So until last year, the LPA was 1961 to 2011. Now at present, what is the LPA we are using? 1971 to 2020. These two data are very important. So at present, which is the year which we are using for long period average? It is 1971 to 2020. So as a result, the LPA has changed from 88 centimeter to 87 centimeter. That means during 1971 to 2020, the average rainfall received by India is 87 centimeters. So I already told this. I am repeating it again. So this current LPA is 87%. The previous one which we were using until last year, that is 1961 to 2011, it was 88 centimeters. So 1 centimeter rain on an average has reduced. So this is not just done by India, this is an international practice to verify the seasonal rainfall once in a decade. So they will change it once in a decade. So similarly, the all India rainfall, which includes rainfall received in the entire year. So this actually does not include the monsoon alone. It includes all the rainfall. That also has reduced from 117 centimeter to 116 centimeters. So the monsoon rainfall average has reduced from 88 to 87%, and 87 centimeters, and the complete overall rainfall also has reduced from 117 to 116 centimeters. So why for the past 4 years we are saying the monsoon is always normal? That was because both the years 2021 and 2022 have been La Nina years. We know that during El Nino, monsoon will be deficit, it will reduce, rainfall will reduce. If it is La Nina, the rainfall will be more. We know that already. So July and August were the wettest months of the year, accounting for 70% of the total seasonal rainfall, while June and September accounting for 15% of rainfall. Okay, so because within July to August, this is the month we get almost 70% of the rainfall. These are the wettest months in India. This could be a geography prelims question. The next topic is about the fertilizers. Next topic is about the fertilizers. We already spoke about the scarcity of fertilizers, particularly the DAP. So what is the problem because of that faced by the farmers and all those things, and now we are going to see it in a little more depth and detail. So annually India consumes 9 to 10 metric ton of DAP and NPKs. So 10 metric ton of DAP and 10 metric ton of NPKs, both are being consumed. Apart from that, 4.5 to 5 metric ton of MOP. So these are the three important fertilizer complexes that we are going to talk about now. And about urea, India produces 24 to 25 million tons out of its yearly consumption of 34 to 35 million tons. So you can see here, we actually consume 34 to 35 million tons, but we produce 24 to 25 million tons. That means even urea we are importing actually. And while urea is sold at controlled basic maximum retail price, so we have, for urea we have something called as an MRP. which is actually fixed at 5360 per ton. This value is not needed maybe, but one thing you have to know is urea is sold with the maximum retail price fixed by the government. Companies are fully compensated for their higher cost of manufacturing or importing this fertilizer. Let us say per ton the company has to sell it for 5360, but actually they have imported fertilizers which had gone to the cost of 8000. So the rest of the money, the rest of the amount will be given by the government. So this is how the selling of urea is controlled in India. But when we see the other ones, they are not like that. So that is what we are going to talk about right now. Now the problem is mainly with the non-urea fertilizers. So what is that? Their MRPs are decontrolled in just theory alone, with the center only paying manufacturers or importers a fixed per ton subsidy based on the nutrient content. So here they don't see how much is the loss incurred by the company as in the case of urea. Here for non-urea fertilizers, the amount is fixed, the subsidy is fixed. That is the subsidy the government will pay. The rest of the amount the company has to take care of. If they are facing more loss, they have to face the loss. So that is the problem here. But in practice, companies have not been allowed to freely set MRPs of these decontrolled fertilizers. So why this new urea is called as decontrolled fertilizer? It is really important because the companies can fix their prices. The government is not going to fix the price. Just see here, for urea the government fixed the price at 5360 rupees per ton. But in the case of non-urea fertilizers, the companies themselves can fix their prices. But this is just in theory, but actually in reality they are not allowed to fix their own prices. The government is intervening. Non-urea fertilizer companies face problem because the gross realization. So what is gross realization? The word gross realization means actual price plus the given subsidy. The total amount. Let us say they imported a fertilizer for 10,000 rupees and they had to sell that fertilizer for 7,000 rupees. And the government gave a subsidy, that is a fixed subsidy. Let us take it for example 2,000 rupees. So the import cost was 10,000 rupees, but what they have realized here by selling and by getting the subsidy together is 1,000 rupees loss. So what will the fertilizer companies do? They will not manufacture, they will not import, they will only take care of the fertilizers. So then who will suffer? There will be a scarcity for fertilizers and the farmers are going to suffer. This is the actual problem. So what you have to know is, what does the gross realization price mean? It means the sum of the selling price plus the government subsidy given for these non-urea fertilizers. So what is the way now? What can we do? Since their MRPs have de facto been brought under control, paying fixed per ton subsidy may not be the right solution. See, in theory alone we say that the companies can fix their own prices for the fertilizers, but in de facto, but in reality it has become that the government intervenes and fixes the prices. But at the same time, they have not changed the method of paying fixed amount as subsidy. You cannot do that. So based on the amount selling price, the government is going to fix. Based on that, they have to give the subsidy also. Now what we can change is, let the companies import the finished fertilizers or inputs at the ruling world price, and the difference can be paid by the government. Simply it is as how it is being done by urea fertilizers. Same can be done for non-urea fertilizers also. This is what the suggestion is being given in the newspaper. And apart from that, what else can be done? They can promote use of something called as SSP. So rather than using DAP, which is very much scarce, we can promote them to use SSPs, which are much more efficient and which are easy to get, and other complexes such as 20-20-0-13 or 10-26-26-0. These are nothing but the NPK configurations. That's all. So we will see it later on what these numbers mean. So this SSP, that is single super phosphate, it has less P than the DAP. What is this P? Phosphorus. Okay, this phosphate content is less in SSP compared to this DAP. DAP, what is DAP? diammonium phosphate. We have already put up a 1-minute current affair in this. You can just have a look through that to know what is DAP completely. Okay, so here in the DAP, the phosphate content is 46%, while in the case of this SSP, it is just 16%. But at the same time, it contains 11% S, which is absent in the DAP. Okay, so but the S content is more, while the P content is less in the SSP. But in the DAP, phosphate is more. So which is better? It is said to be that SSP is really good. It can be proposed for the farmers to use them. So now we'll see just a little bit in detail. What are these fertilizers? Now we are saying that the farmers can be advised to substitute DAP with SSP. And other one is 20-20-0-13. And the other one is MOP. So we are going to talk about three important things. One is SSP, other one is MOP, and the other one is this 20-20-0-13 fertilizer. And how are we going to replace? This could be a little bit important question. DAP can be replaced with SSP and 20-20-0-13. And what can this MOP be replaced by? MOP can be replaced by 10-26-26-0. Okay, so which means it has 10% of N, which is nitrogen, and 26% of phosphorus, P. Okay, so NPK. So this is what here it is. 10-26-26-0 is nitrogen phosphate. So which is phosphate is also 28 here. Okay, so this can be replaced instead of for MOP. Okay, so that's it for today's topics. And this last topic, which was completely about agriculture. Agriculture questions are favorite for UPSC prelims as well as for GS3, sometimes even in GS2, and sometimes even in the essay paper. So in so many places, agricultural concepts can reflect. So here, this last topic, it seemed to be like very vast, but actually it is very simple. There are two types of fertilizers. One is urea and non-urea. That's it. For urea, the government says, I will fix the price. If you face any loss, I will give that loss to you. But for non-urea fertilizers, the government says, yes, you can fix the price. The companies can fix the price. But in reality, it does not happen. In reality, the government is fixing the price. But at the same time, the subsidy is fixed. If they are going to face a loss of 2000 rupees, the subsidy might be just 500 rupees. So the companies are facing loss. So how to tackle this now? So because of this, there's a scarcity of fertilizers and farmers are suffering because of this. So how to tackle this? There are two ways. How urea fertilizers are being priced. Similarly, non-urea fertilizers can also be priced. That is, the government can fix the price, and the loss amount, the government can pay it. And the other one, we have to try and replace this DAP and MOP, which are really very scarce. And instead of DAP, we can use something like SSP or this NPK fertilizer at the ratio of 20-20-0-13 or 20-26-26-0, such like that. And the other hand, fix the prices and then try to replace the fertilizers with the replacing fertilizers which are much more available than rather than sticking to the ones which are scarce. So this is the way forward. Thank you. Jai Hind. If you like the content, please share it with your friends. Let's learn and grow together.